Live from parts unknown, you're listening to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast, the only wrestling podcast on the planet, we think. Sit back, relax, prepare for positivity to run through your veins as Simon Miller gives you your weekly dose of powerful pro wrestling audio. It is Miller Time.
Hello and welcome to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I do want to apologise. I realise it's been a very long time, but sometimes life just gets in the way. However, hopefully I'm going to make up to it you all massively with what I would like to say is easily going to be my most favourite guest so far, and hopefully yours too. It's the one, it's the only, it's the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Sterling. Jim, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Not a problem. Though I prefer to go by my my moniker of the Shakespeare of song. These meta heels they do these days are great. But hello.
How you doing? You well? You good? You happy?
As good as, yeah. I'm as fit as I'm ever gonna get. So you take what you can get, you know. Thumbs
Indeed.
up for me.
Now I'm excited to have this chat with you because you are. I mean, I wouldn't say a relatively fresh back into pro wrestling, but you're kind of slowly getting drawn back in again, right?
As of this year, yeah. Basically, I had an urge a couple months back to rewatch Shane versus Kurt Angle, King of the Ring.
Oh man,
the glass pane and everything. I had vivid memories of watching that live back in the day. That's when I was a fan back then, sort of late Attitude era, ruthless aggression era, that sort of thing. One of the last things I remember was. I'd stopped. I was too poor for cable eventually, so I started just getting stuff online. So the last time I remember being into wrestling was just about the time of King Booker.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, and so I've missed about 15 years or so.
My worry is you didn't miss much. That's my only worry. I kind of think through that 15 years, and I'm like, you kind of missed Triple H. Just controlling everything. I mean, you missed the rise of John Cena, which is good or bad depending on how you feel about John Cena. But other than that, I think this is the fascinating thing. I think genuinely you could start pro wrestling in January 2017, and within 3 months go, yeah, I'm caught up. I know everything from the last 10 or so years.
That's how I felt. Like once I watched King of the Ring, 2001, I think it was. I decided to. Obviously, I bought the network. Well, I'd got a trial of the network, and I thought, well, I'll check out the new stuff. I'll see what it's like. And I went through from Royal Rumble of this year, checked out all the pay-per-views up to let's see, Backlash was about when I was getting back in. So Backlash was the first pay-per-view I tried to watch live. Comcast wasn't very helpful. I got about half of it and had to watch the rest the next day, which really bummed me out because that was very special for me because the first live pay-per-view I ever saw when I was into it the first time was Backlash. It was Backlash 2000, just right at the run of those really famously wonderful 2000-year pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Like they had that disappointing WrestleMania. And then it was Backlash through to like No Mercy, or whenever it was when Rikishi did it for The Rock, when it really went off a bit. But that year, so that was a very special year, and it was sort of special for me to see Backlash. So thanks Comcast for ruining that for me.
Modern day, right? Modern day's wonderful. Yeah. Nothing ever goes wrong.
Yeah, but I've gone back and looked at some stuff. Like I've gone back and looked at some Authority stuff. But that was mostly by accident because I was only there to look at Stardust. Because I'd missed Corey Rhodes and everything I'd seen of him really appealed to me because I'm a big fan of over-the-top, ludicrous characters.
I loved Stardust. Genuinely. No one ever believes they think I'm being facetious. I mean it. But for the reasons you just said, it's one of those things you watch and you're like, what the hell is this? Some dude running out, he thinks he's from space. I mean, what other form of entertainment are you going to get away? It's like kids' TV, and yet it's being, put out there for adults like you and I. Yeah. I loved him.
Kids' TV that you can get away with. I am a fan of a strong, silly gimmick. I guess. And I guess that's not popular these days, because looking at at least WWE now, everything, like most of the guys just seem to be just guys.
Yeah.
Like, that's their thing. Like they're just people, which is fine. But sometimes I'm looking at them like, what's the difference between all these people? It's like, I know I like Seth Rollins and I know I like Dean Ambrose, but most of the time they're just guys now.
Yeah.
They're not I've seen some of the early Dean Ambrose stuff, but I don't know what he does these days that qualifies for lunacy.
Oh,
I think they've got to redefine what lunacy is, because
they need to go back to their marketing department and tell them, look, we don't need catchphrases or these lines for everybody, because you've hit the nail on the head. Why is he the lunatic fringe? A, it's a terrible choice of words anyway. It barely makes any sense. But B, why is he a lunatic? And honestly, I mean, we're getting into this now, but this is genuine. I don't know whether you listen to Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, but this is genuinely something he asks on every episode. He says, well, why is this guy this guy? And why is that guy? And he's 100% right. And you've hit the nail on the head. Like, you come into it, you meet Dean Ambrose, you've got the commentators sort of bashing you over the head. Oh, this guy's a lunatic. And then you watch him and he's just having wrestling matches. That's it.
He's just a guy. Like, I loved him when the first thing I ever saw of him was, that would have been Royal Rumble 2017 of this year. And I immediately loved him because he struck me as being like Taco from the League, as a wrestler who just turns up in jeans and shirt, eating. Like, I think that was his first scene in Royal Rumble. He just turns up like chewing on something and asking what his number is, and he doesn't even look at it because he doesn't care.
I remember that.
And he just and I was like, this guy's brilliant. I love the idea of a wrestler who just doesn't care about anything.
Yeah.
But everything else I've seen of him subsequently has not followed through on that. And he comes out, pulls his funny faces like those like old man gurners you see at the pier.
It is like that.
It kind of is. Like my wife's looked at some of this stuff. Like, she saw some of the old Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose having a go at Seth Rollins after his turn back in the couple of years ago, and she just looked at them like, these are the most ludicrous looking men. She doesn't like Dean Ambrose. She thinks he looks very greasy.
He does look a bit like a mechanic. I think that's fair.
He looks like he's covered in some sort of slime.
He does. She's not wrong. She's actually called that one very well, actually, now you said it out loud. But I think I'm completely on board, because I was actually having a chat with someone about this the other day, because there is this big argument in pro wrestling at the moment. And it basically stems from, old school manager Jim Cornette, who thinks that unless you take pro wrestling super seriously, then you're undermining the business, and I go the complete opposite way. I think that wrestling is so stupid and so silly when you break it down that we should take. I mean, you have to be serious when you come to your WrestleMania main event, because you want there to be that believability factor there.
Sure,
but outside of that, I think you should be. I think we should have men from space in gold costumes.
Absolutely, there's room for both. I mean, back. Not to do that, because I do genuinely enjoy the product I'm seeing now, but back in the day, back in my day, there was room for both. Like, you'd have serious stories. Like, The Rock was involved in some vicious stuff with Triple H back in 2000 and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
but he was still doing all the funny stuff. He would rattle off his catchphrases. He'd crack jokes. He'd say some of the most ludicrous stuff in the world. But you still believed that he was 100% into the fight he was having. And this was happening at the same time, that Val Venus was coming out and doing all of his business. And Goldust was doing his whole thing. Goldust, another one that I absolutely love. And so there's room for both. I see Bray Wyatt get a lot of hate online for being over the top and silly. It's another one my wife's not fond of because he's over dramatic, but I love him. I get that I'm new coming back in, so I haven't seen the early stuff where a lot of people have said how he's been discredited with so many losses. I've not seen too much of that.
Yeah.
So coming in fresh, everything about him I like, because he's one of the most interesting guys there, because he's not just a dude. He's not just bloke.
You're right. And you know what? Because I've actually, I watch too much wrestling anyway, but I've actually soured on Bray Wyatt for the reason you just said, because he started losing so many matches. I think that inner, nerd wrestling child that lives within us all was like, well, he's rubbish. He can't even win a match. But you're right. If you had started in 2017 and introduced a Bray Wyatt, who comes out and talks in these almost like sonnets and the lights go out and, he was world champion for a while and, all that kind of stuff, I actually think you would be a bit miffed if, you didn't understand, not understand, that's the wrong word, but I actually think in 2017 they've treated him well. But it's everything before
he started
that.
Winning again.
Well, yeah, that's it.
Great Balls of Fire onwards, and I think I see where they're going with it, because he went after Roman Reigns, and lost the night after Extreme Rules.
Yeah,
and then went straight immediately, I think that night, onto Seth Rollins and beat him. And also was teasing Samoa Joe, and now he's after Finn Balor. It's looking like he is making good on that promise he sort of offhandedly made, that he's going after everyone who won. Everyone who competed at Extreme Rules. And hopefully that leads him right back round circular to Roman Reigns if he goes through them all and knocks them off. That looks like the trajectory, because he's going after everyone he fought at Extreme Rules.
Yeah.
So... It's an interesting story, the guys he's targeting, and they all seem to have that connection.
I agree. I just hope that WWE remember to tell that story, because I think that's something that they do in the modern days. They do sometimes forget to piece together, what they're trying to tell. But in terms of someone, because obviously you basically checked out of wrestling. I mean, you timed it perfectly as it was on the downward swing, really.
Yeah, I missed the Great Khali. I came back just in time for the Great Khali, apparently.
you got him.
But I missed his big reign. I missed a lot of the stuff that I heard was really bad. John Cena doesn't interest me as a character. I find his USA thing a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
And he is very... I know, the whole never give up also just... I'm not sure what all the history of that is, but just looking at it at face value seems very mawkish and cloying, and it's just not the kind of thing I'm into. Like, I think he's incredible as a performer, but his whole shtick just doesn't do it for me, so I kind of mentally check out whenever he's fighting Rusev again for the glory of America against its hated nemesis, Bulgaria. That famous rivalry.
I find it amazing that even if you had somehow checked out of wrestling in 1988, you could have come back in 2017 and it's the same old shtick. I cannot believe we're still doing... Yeah, in 2017, when the world is smaller than ever, it's still, well, this guy's not from America, so you shouldn't like him. It's like, you do know you have a worldwide audience, WWE. Like, you have Bulgarians. I'm sure it's not a super important market for you because Bulgaria is a small country, but why are you insulting them all? Like, I don't really get it.
Why are people booing Bulgaria? What have they done?
I don't know. Not America. That's it.
Yeah,
they're just not America.
It's not America. It's like the what chance whenever anyone has a bit of an accent, or Jinder Mahal does his whole shtick of speaking in Punjabi.
What do you think of Jinder Mahal?
Going what? And I don't know.
Neither do I. Yeah, that's how I feel.
There's not a lot to him. Like I find the foreign heel thing in his regard, again, a little bit creepy, because even though I was kind of only quasi-invested towards the latter years, I remember the controversy when they went with the terrorist gimmick they had to stop because that when, real-world events happened. So when I see Jinder Mahal, what I'm looking at and what I'm thinking is someone in creative has thought, we need someone who we can make look like a terrorist, but he's not from the Middle East, so we can get away with hating the brown man. Like that's my read on it. And it just kind of skeeves me out a little bit. And I'd like to see him, as well as Rusev, like all of those, like, I guess the foreign heel thing just doesn't do it for me. Like, I never was a big fan of it. And
I'm with you, man.
I want to see them move away from that. Like, yeah, like Jinder's whole thing of I'm being, people are being prejudiced against me and everything. Like, it kind of works in a sense that it seems to be in his head, but they're not playing it like it's in his head. They're just using him as kind of like a straw complainer. a straw foreign complainer who just hates America because it's America and America's so good. And I know, like, you can do a lot of things with a foreign heel. I think that isn't just that, but that is all they ever do.
I totally agree.
Consequently, yeah, I'm just not into Jinder's whole shtick.
But
he seems like a good performer and everything.
I think that's the thing. That's my biggest thing with him. He actually is. I mean, he gets a lot of slack online just because he went from nothing to everything without any build. You're not allowed to do that in pro wrestling, even though that's actually kind of cool.
Even physically, he went from nothing to everything. From the looks of his older photographs.
I don't know what to feel about that, because let's say that, you know, he is on that magic stuff that some people go on. That's been the focus ever since. Like, the internet especially is like, oh, terrible. But my thing with it is, but they're all doing it. Like, I've never known a wrestler that's not doing it.
Wrestlers do.
Yeah, so I don't.
And he seems proud of himself. He seems proud of his big old arms.
Oh, man, he goes
take any opportunity to show them off. So I guess.
But I just think the problem, like you've said, the problem with the sort of old school, oh, I'm a bad guy. It's like that Futurama episode where he's like, boo me, I'm from abroad. Like, I take your jobs. It's like, I don't see why I should hate him, because look, this is going to sound terrible, but I think there's some truth to it. If you are a like American patriotic person, then I imagine it does work to that demographic. Like, you know, I've seen them. I've seen the people that still think wrestling's real. I know they exist. And I imagine that person loves it. But I think by and large, kind of the audience they have nowadays are people like you and me who just accept it for what it is. And I don't care that Jinder doesn't come from America. I don't care that he's proud of his country. I'm like, yeah, good for you, Jinder. I'm glad.
Yeah. If anything, I'm kind of just the idea that speaking in your native tongue is a heel move is something I find a little bit alarming.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Like, I'm gonna speak Punjabi, and that's villainous. Like, it's not really villainous.
If anything, it just makes me think, oh, wow, this guy's really smart. He can speak in two languages. I can't talk two languages.
Like, WWE is proud of how popular it is in India. So, like, if anything, that should be a face move.
That's the other thing. That's the one thing I never understood, is that apparently, you know, this big Jinder push was to really, you know, get in that Indian market and cement that as a hotbed for WWE. Then why is he a bad guy? Like, why? Yeah. I don't get it. It makes no sense.
Like, I wonder how he is viewed there. Like, I don't know. Like, I've not really looked it up or anything, but one wonders how he is viewed. Like, is he just viewed as a face? In you know, like, if they go and tour India, will he get a big face cheer? I guess so, just for being, you know, a home country guy. But I don't know.
It's strange.
It is bizarre to me.
It is absolutely strange. But I mean, how do you find it coming back? So obviously you left at the real peak of pro wrestling, I would say, especially WWE. And now, you know, you return to it this year where, you know, it's still popular, but it's kind of, like I said, the audience is certainly more, it's kind of a smaller but more intense hardcore audience, especially given, you know, how popular social media is.
Yeah, it kind of leveled out, I guess, after it had its big groundswell. So it's kind of leveled to it looks stable now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But what sort of, do you see any pros? Do you see any cons? Do you think it's better now? Do you think it's better then? Like you said, you're enjoying it, and I actually enjoy it today too. I know a lot of people don't, but they persevere with it anyway. But like, yeah, I mean, when you first sort of, you know, really got back into that weekly groove of watching it, like, how did you? What kind of stood out to you? I guess because it's fascinating to find someone that has only come back to it this year.
Yeah. The immediate thing that struck me was the atmosphere. The atmosphere is very different.
Yeah.
It's a very different type of show than it used to be, especially with the fan interaction, which has always been important. And the fact that these days people are so much more prone to cheering for just who they like rather than who's a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah.
The warring chant thing never happened when I was watching it. People cheering, you know, those where the audience is just 50-50 split and they're just alternating, cheering for whichever one of the two guys fighting they like. That was never a thing back in my day.
Yeah.
So that's odd. As is, you know, like the reaction to Roman Reigns, I find that darkly fascinating. You know, I went back and watched the reaction he got after WrestleMania.
Oh, I loved it. I loved
put the taker away. It's so weird. And what they're doing with him now as a kind of quasi-response to it is very interesting. And I'm torn between, like, agreeing that this guy's push isn't warranted just given how boring he is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I recognize the boring aspect isn't really his fault. And so I kind of feel a bit bad for him. And every time I hear his music start up, I can't help but feel empathy of like, what must be going through that man's mind, knowing he's got to walk out there and just look at them all, hating him. Like they've never hated a stranger before. And I mean, fair play to the man. He goes out confident, swaggers, like does not seem to let it affect him. He'll power through.
Yeah.
And has, like John Cena, started to acknowledge it more. Like that crack he made about something, I forget what it was, but it was a negative on his part, and he's like, some of you people are going to really like this announcement. Just to try and get them to shut up. And it's like rolling with it, and him doing that whole coming out and demanding a title match at SummerSlam just because he feels entitled to it. It's an interesting angle, but they've got to lean into it more. Just having him come out and say, I'm not a good guy or a bad guy, I'm the guy, is just... That's not... It's at the same time too forced and not enough.
Yeah.
So that's something. What else is there? The women's division. That's very different now, of course.
Oh, absolutely. It's a real women's division.
Yeah. Trish and Lita were just kick-starting all of that stuff when I was watching. But it was still very much, Stacy Keibler would come out and dance and give Vince McMahon an orgasm, like that whole
Those good
thing.
days, yeah.
Yeah, those classic days. But to see it now, where, we're looking at really great performers and they're being given, like, headline-level stuff to the point where I do believe that we can have like women's matches as main events at WrestleMania, and should have, because they're some of the best performers there. Ever since Money in the Bank, Carmella has skyrocketed to one of my favorite performers, just because she is so good at working a crowd and making them hate her, which seems to be a lot difficult now than it used to be. Which is why I'm really liking those meta heels I talked about. Yeah, Aiden English's, your Elias Sampson's, your Canellis's. People that are just being obnoxious just to get some heat. To get that X-Pac heat, but deliberate.
Exactly,
I find
that trying to wind them up.
very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Like really playing a meta game with the crowd, because the crowd's too smart, quote unquote, for the old sort of heel tactics, because they don't really care.
You're right.
I mean, hell, they were cheering Eddie Guerrero for cheating for years. Why are they going to care when The Miz does it, Well,
you mentioned, I think you've just, something you did mention there, because to me, The Miz is he's almost the opposite to all of that. Like, he is the one guy who seems to be able to, tie into that old sense of, well, I'm going to boo you because you seem like a massive knob. I think that's why he's been so good and so successful all these years, because he does, to me especially, always comes across like, yeah, I'd like to punch you in the face. But I think that's why he's so good, because he doesn't have to be this almost ironic heel. He's just a massive idiot. And I think that's why he's so talented.
Yeah, I agree. I'm big on The Miz. I like The Miz a lot. The current thing with Dean feels a little played out.
Oh, yeah.
But the Miz-Tourage thing, which I wish they just called the Entourage, because that just seems like a better name for a stable.
It does.
Than the Miz-Tourage. But I get it with Miz's character that I guess he would, of course, call it the Miz-Tourage. Like, I like him as a performer. I like him as a guy on the mic. And yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, they're not going to care at basic cheating, anymore. But he is such a... Like, he reminds me of Rick Mail sometimes.
That is interesting.
The way the hair flops over the face, the way he's kind of like he's a good-looking guy but can make himself look ugly, just to look really, like, give himself that really punchable face.
Yeah.
He's very good at that stuff. So that I guess those are all like the major changes. Like, very much the atmosphere is very different. Something about it feels a little too polished these days, so it's a little harder to get into, a little harder to believe, but you can suspend the disbelief.
I think so.
But it just feels very polished and a little overly clean these days.
Yeah.
There's something else I was going to say that's different. The thing they do. I know they've been doing it for many, many years, so this is old to probably most of the people listening. But when they zoom the camera in and out every time someone slams on the mat.
Oh, yeah.
That never used to happen, and most of the time I can ignore it, but a show is ruined the moment I remember it. The moment I notice it again, I'm like, oh god, this whole match is shot now, because every time I see a slam, I'm going to get vertigo.
It's so they shoot it like it's action, don't they? I don't know when they made that change, but yeah, at one point, someone, or Kevin Dunn, I guess is the main man who pulls out those strings, said, you know what? We're a TV show and we should shoot this like it's action. It's like, no, please don't do this.
Yeah, like it takes away, I think, from the work the people are doing in the ring. Like, if you're going to take a nasty bump, like, I wouldn't want it ruined by a blurring in and out shot. Like, I want to see people, like, see me hit the thing,
Yeah,
you know?
but I mean, they've made so many, that's kind of something they do as as an artistic choice, but sometimes they go so erratic with their cameras. I don't know whether you caught up with the Royal Rumble when AJ Styles debuted. They missed him walking out. And to this day, it's something that baffles me. I was like, surely we all knew that the thing to do when AJ Styles arrived in WWE was film the thing. But sometimes I think they go too into, we're a TV show. It's like, well, you are a TV show, but you're a very unique TV show, and you kind of do have to blur that line between sports and TV a little more. But of course, they hate that. They don't want to be a sport for some reason, which I never understand. People love People love sport.
Like, I've noticed that, like, a lot of changes over the years. Like, the big ones were already in place. You know, they're not wrestlers, they're superstars, etc. But I notice these days they don't even reference belts anymore. Like,
they're titles.
They're always titles. Why do they not say title shot as much anymore?
Do you know what?
It used to always be about title shots. Now it's title opportunity.
It's genuinely, and obviously I don't know how much of this stuff I read is true, but if we're going to take it all at face value, apparently Vince McMahon is just bonkers these days. And he wakes up every day with a new pet peeve. And one day it was title shots, then it was belts, then it was you can't say hospital. And apparently the new one is you're not allowed to call a cage. It has to be a structure. You're not allowed to call the Money in the Bank briefcase a briefcase. It's a Money in the Bank contract. He just sounds like he's 72. He's a very hard worker, and he's probably a bit potty.
I mean, he was always out of touch anyway with just reality in the world. This is the man that didn't know what a friggin', what was it, a burrito?
Yeah, he didn't know.
He didn't know what it was while he was eating one.
Yes, that's true.
The guy just doesn't seem quite connected to real life, which I guess kind of helps if you're doing a wrestling show. But after a while, it's one of those things where, well, it's the Lucas effect. It's like you need someone in place who is strong enough and not scared enough to say no sometimes.
Exactly.
I think no matter how creative you are, no matter how brilliant you might be, everybody I feel needs someone who can say no to them.
I think it's imperative.
Just to balance them.
You can't just have one guy, especially because he does everything. Like, I know people are quick to kind of, get on his case, but he does stories, he does booking, he does, marketing, promotion, PR, he does everything. He is.
He's in Michael Cole's ear for the whole broadcast, isn't he?
Yeah, pretty much. So it's like that is. I honestly don't know how he does it. So I respect it in that sense. But like you say, you need someone kind of steering him in the right direction because nobody can do that. Nobody has the power to be, one and everything to a company that's that big.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
And for all the crap they get, and some of it justified, like I remember back in the day, the stories of Triple H and whatnot. They do seem to, like, it does seem like they are going to do a better job when they're in full control. Certainly, I've been catching up with NXT, of course, and really, really enamored with that. So who knows? Like I see, it certainly looks like things right now are weird, but finding a new sort of footing. So I think it's a very interesting time. At least as someone just coming into it, it seems like an interesting time to be getting back in.
I think so. One thing I did want to mention, obviously, this ties into the current storylines as well. Because when you kind of jumped off first time, this kind of storyline was just the done thing. And people kind of believed into it more, I guess, because we hadn't had the explosion of social media and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, the big reveal on Raw a few weeks ago was that Jason Jordan was Kurt Angle's son. Now, we all know that's utter bollocks. Like, there's no way anyone is ever going to buy into that. Whereas, back in the day when, Kane's Undertaker's brother, you're like, well, he's probably not, but okay, I get it. And there was nothing really too in your face to really ruin that suspension of disbelief. Yeah. And now a lot of people are, you kind of got this 50-50 thing now where loads of people are like, this is great, soap opera wrestling's back. And then you've got the more kind of, I guess, serious fan. Again, it's like, this is not what I want from my wrestling. I mean, where do you fall on that argument? Because I want more of that stuff. I just don't necessarily think I enjoy this particular storyline just because I don't think it's been very well executed.
Yeah, I think that it's the lack of believability, not just from the fact that we know it's bollocks, but like I remember who Kurt Angle was when he debuted.
Yeah.
That wasn't a man having random sex.
That's
that was
a good
guy
point.
Drinking milk. That was a guy drinking milk and being nerdy. Like, that was his original character, and I remember that. I'm like, I don't buy that. I don't buy that Kurt Angle did that. But I'm always... I always like no matter how fantastical it gets, I like a character that has some grounding in real life. Even something as out there as Stardust made sense to me because he was Goldust's brother, and Goldust was, out of his tree. And it makes sense that Cody Rhodes, who had done all sorts of other weird things by that point.
Yeah.
Of course, when he adopted Goldust traits, he'd take it further and go absolutely bonkers with it. That I like. Whereas this, when it just feels like so pulled out of nowhere.
Yeah, rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah. Like Kane, I could believe because Kane had a mask and was very much a character. He was very much a straight out of a slasher movie character. Kurt Angle and Jason Jordan, they're not straight out of comic book characters. So making up a familial tie with them, I just don't quite buy. Yeah. Whereas, and it was the same for me with Edge and Christian. To the point where WWE sort of agreed with that and retconned it so they weren't brothers anymore. And so it's odd to me that they're doing this. But then again, with the amount of gimmick matches they're bringing back, sometimes it feels like they're trying to recapture some of that stuff. Maybe because, of how popular their biggest stars are with kids. Like, why not try and go back to some of that sort of pre-attitude silliness, or pre-attitude or early attitude as well, sort of fantastical soap opera stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely up for it. This one I don't know what it is. I can't really put my finger on it, but it just felt a bit flat. It was just a bit like, I think maybe it was just too much of a stretch, especially when you're on Instagram or Twitter and you've got Kurt Angle talking about his kids and Jason Jordan's not there. I mean, that's a whole different argument itself, but it is a really good way to kind of buries itself deep in your brain when you are watching. You're like, well, I know what I saw, and obviously that wasn't around in the late 90s and early 2000s, so it was so much easier just to go, of course Stone Cold Steve Austin hates Vince McMahon, why wouldn't he? Whereas if you take a step back, you're like, well, no, that's preposterous, he's signing his checks. I don't think he hates him that much.
I think the problem with Jordan is, like, I'm looking at him and thinking, I'm not thinking, oh, good for him, he's Kurt Angle's boy. I'm thinking, good for him, he seems like a good wrestler, and this is a nice rub for him.
Yep,
like,
that's how I
what
see
I'm
it.
thinking.
It's terrible, isn't it? Like, I actually buy into them as human beings, which I guess is nice in a way, but also I'm like, no, you're supposed to be a cartoon character. And I'm just thinking, oh, he's got a really good job. He's doing really well at his job. His career's on such an upward trend. I mean, that's a weird way to watch wrestling.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for him, and good for him. And I like fantastical, over the top stories, but very much like you, this one just is a bit too off to get into.
Yeah, I hope it is a big swerve. I hope it turns out that Jason Jordan made all this up to get a big push on Raw, and he screwed over Kurt Angle. I'd much prefer that. And that's proper soap opera too. Like the big reveal is, I'm not really your son, Dad, and Triple H put me up to it. I'm like, yeah, here we go. Now we're talking. Yeah. Get all these names.
Like one thing that has impressed me with the show is lately, from what I've seen, is they seem to have been quite good these days at starting stories badly, and if they didn't have a plan for it, coming up with a plan that saves it, and in retrospect makes it good. Like the whole Money in the Bank thing, like the women's Money in the Bank thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, seeing the actual match at Money in the Bank left a sour taste. I mean, the whole show had so many screwy finishes that it was a weird show to watch, and it just looked like an entire 3-hour troll job. But everything that was screwy has blossomed into something interesting. Like Uso's New Day, very, very into that now.
Oh, it's awesome, yeah. Usos are great.
I love the Usos, yeah. Like their whole thing is great to watch. And then the New Day, Xavier Woods is adorable. I'd love to just have him live in my house. I was watching an old, just an old random one, I think from 2015, 2014, back when they were heels, and they were I think, funnily enough, they were fighting a face Usos, and the crowd were booing them, and Xavier Woods was just yelling at the crowd, "What did we do? What did we do? We're winning!" Could not believe so hurt that they were being booed, and I'm like, that's again a great sort of meta heel. Be so positive and nice that they hate you. That it's that kind of heel work that I find so fascinating. It's why I'm such a big fan of Elias Sampson.
Oh, I love him. I love him.
He's so painful to watch.
Exactly.
It's glorious.
Yeah.
And he's working it so well. He knows how hated he is. He knows exactly the reaction he gets when he tells them to be quiet and turn their phones off.
Yeah.
It's been great watching him turn into a sort of real piece of work.
Yeah, I think he's got great potential as well. I know that when these characters come up, the criticism that everybody gets thrown at nowadays, well, he's not very good in the ring. It's man, I used to watch wrestling when nobody was good in the ring. I watched Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan. That never used to be. I understand, we've evolved and we've got to a point where things are different, but that was never the be-all and end-all. And the fact of the matter is, he's got that end of it down, and because of that, he is entertaining, because, he goes out there to piss people off, and that is a part of pro wrestling, which is, he does a great job of it, and I enjoy it.
I mean, the way I look at it is, it's you look at someone like The Big Show. Now, The Big Show has never been a great wrestler.
No.
But he's had these periods where, with the right story and the right frame of mind, he will put on a hell of an entertaining match. It won't be a good wrestling match, but he'll give you 10 to 15 minutes of something entertaining with the right setup. And that's what guys like Elias are. You give them the right opponent, put them in with someone else who's who can cover for them, and let them do the psychological aspects of it and get the heat and whatnot. And you'll get a great performance.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's almost tie into sort of Paul Heyman logic there about, hide the weaknesses and push the positives. And when you do start doing that, it's oh, look, Big Show's a real asset now, because we know if we put him with the right person, we're going to get an entertaining thing. Whereas, I mean, there are definitely some wrestling fans who are, unless you're like a ring general who can control everything, like a Seth Rollins or somebody like that, who is just superbly talented at what he does between the ropes. You shouldn't be a wrestler. It's whoa, man, I don't want to go down that path. I mean, I love wrestling matches, but I love everything that goes around it as well. I don't want to lose that. I want the idiots that go in the ring and don't really know what they're doing, but can be massively entertaining outside of it. Again, that's why wrestling is so great, because you couldn't do that in football. You can't put somebody on a football pitch that doesn't have a certain amount of talent, because they'll get absolutely destroyed. And yet wrestling, for some reason, if you've got enough personality and charisma, you can be shit at the actual action part, but you can find ways and means and work with other people to get around that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so fascinating.
Well, I mean, look at what I've been calling Roman Joe Stroman on Raw. It's not, Roman's good at what he does. Samoa Joe, of course, is Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
And Braun Strowman, I mean, he's another one of those sort of, your stereotypical big guy. But the stuff they're doing, it's not really great wrestling together. But I love it, because it's just three big guys just pounding the crap out of each other. And it looks real. And the way they're selling it with all the other wrestlers coming out to try and stop them. But they are so big and angry that the combined might of the entire rest of the world of wrestling cannot contain how much they hate each other. That's to quote, Vince K, that's good shit. That's good shit right there. That is good.
It is, you're right. because it's over the top and ridiculous. And because they are so almost, ramped up to 11, you kind of believe it. Like, man, they really are pissed off with each other.
Yeah. These guys are so big and so angry, they are using ambulances as weapons.
Oh, man, I mean, what was that? I mean, all of that was so dumb, but so good. I loved it. Like, the ambulance became a prop. I was like, this is just... It's so strange, but I
forget who it was on Twitter, but they said they were explaining it to their other half as like the whole Stroman versus Roman Reigns feud, and it boils down to like the giant man hit the big man so much he went to he went into an ambulance, and then the big man tried to kill the giant man with the ambulance. Wrestling.
Exactly, and I think I know it goes the other way sometimes, and I know we get. These awful moments where it's like, oh, why? Why do you do this? But when they get it right, which I think that was balanced perfectly, that's when I realised I love wrestling. We had attempted murder. We had a guy somehow surviving something he could never survive. It's just fun, and it's just wonderful, and it puts a smile on my face. And that's why I like Braun Strowman so much, because he's, they've had the confidence to go, you know what, let's go so over the top that yet somehow we come back down the other side. And it's worked. To me... I mean, Samoa Joe's up there too, but I think he's my favourite person on either brand at the moment. I look forward to seeing him. When his music hits, I react, which I haven't done in a long time. And it's all because they went, you know what? Silliness is okay, but let's go all the way silliness. So somehow it becomes serious.
That's it. Like, he's just, regardless of skill, he is just so utterly intense.
Yeah.
That it's hard to take your eyes off the guy. And it shows with the crowd reactions. Like, they love the guy. And I know part of that is because he keeps beating up Roman Reigns. But that I find, again, going back to the change in atmosphere, I find it so fascinating. The biggest face on Raw is the bad guy who keeps ambushing and picking on the good guy.
It's great, right?
But there is just something great about him, the whole raw thing, and it's good to see. Entrances are a lot more extravagant than they used to be, I've noticed. That's another change. Like, back in the day, it was just, smash of glass, dead out, dead out, dead out. But nowadays, it's all Finn Balor with the and all this stuff. Like, it's... And
it's produced,
Shinsuke
right?
Nakamura, of course.
Do you like them? Are you a fan, or are they a bit too much?
I tell you what, even though I stopped watching wrestling while I was starting up doing the whole games media stuff, one of the holdovers that I kept with me always was the love of a good entrance, to the point where I wouldn't even want to do a PAX panel unless I came out to music. And that was all because of wrestling.
Yeah.
So I am in love with a good entrance, and the fact
me
that
too.
so many of them have great entrances now. Like, I'll watch, like, I love the matches in NXT, but the anticipation of, like, Asuka coming out with the mask and the dancing, or of course Bobby Roode with that music, Shinsuke Nakamura, Finn Balor in WWE, like I am a big fan of the pomp and circumstance and the just ludicrous levels of grandeur that these men give to themselves. Well, men and women give to themselves.
I totally agree.
Big fan of it. Like, I love a good entrance. So that's been delighting me. Like, again, to go back to Bray Wyatt, who I would say, at least right now, is my top guy to watch. Like, that entrance, I have not gotten bored of it. Yeah, maybe in a couple of years, but right now, like, the whole lamp thing, the music, the people with the phones, the sudden blowing of the lamp, and just how it cuts right up to full house lights, brilliant.
Yeah,
masterful execution.
I agree. I think it's all of that stuff is honestly, like, obviously I'm doing this stop-start journey to try and become a wrestler. And I was saying to my mate the other day, I think the only reason I'm doing this is to have an entrance. I think that's it. I think I'd be
honestly,
happy.
Yeah, my dreams of being a wrestler back in the day, not now with the back, but it was. I'd only ever imagine A, insulting crowds, and B, music, like entrance music.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I just want the over-the-topness and the reaction. I think that's it. I go to the ring, wave, and then go back. I think I'd be all right. I don't need the bit in the middle. I don't. And he said to me, he goes, "Would you care if you were just like a jobber?" I was like, "No, job me out. I don't care. I just want an entrance.
As long as I get a nice entrance."
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, it's funny that you're talking about that because, like, the more I look at it, and you mentioned like Paul Heyman, like to me, obviously, never. There is no reality in which I'm conceivably a wrestler. A manager, on the other hand. Now,
I think you'd be great here, man. I think you'd.
I've been told over the years, like, just adapt the Jimquisition persona and you've got a wrestling manager.
Absolutely, man. I think it'd be like Duck to Water stuff. That would be, dude.
I like to think so. I've been considering seeing, like, I mean, I'm in Mississippi. There are gonna be wrestlers around here.
Yeah,
There's gonna
are.
be wrestling, like small wrestling promotions out here. Like, I'd love to give it a go because I'm good at working a crowd, and I'm in the Jimquisition persona. Like the show I do is that there is so many shades of Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette. And
absolutely, I can totally see that. Yeah, and you've got the props as well.
Yeah.
You've got it all.
Hell of a hat.
But you need that, right? You need that kind of one visual aid that, you know, people associate with you. Kind of, that just seems to be a wrestling thing. So you're halfway there. I think you should do it. I'm a big supporter of this.
I won't lie. Like, I'll look at guys in the NXT and think, like, who would I like to manage?
That's brilliant.
Like, who would I like to manage? And to me, like, my dream. You know, other people dream of wrestlers, but to me, like the dream of if I were to ever be involved in the business would be to manage Sanity.
Oh, dude, I'd watch that. We should make this happen. I don't know how we do that, but that would be...
Yeah, no idea how, but to be able to speak for Killian Dane and have interactions with Nikki Cross, like, that would be probably my dream gig if I were to think of having any involvement with that side of things.
I'm upset now because I want that to happen. That would be so... I mean, it would work so well. I'd get a kick out of that. One thing I do want to touch on, because obviously this is how this whole conversation started, is we're a couple of months removed from Battleground. Yeah. And we were having a chat over Twitter about the Punjabi prison match.
Yes, we were, yes.
And you said, right, I better go watch these old Punjabi prison matches, which you did. Now
I did, both of them.
Yeah, where we got to, because obviously I think most people on this show know that I hate the Punjabi. I just hate it. It's too stupid. You can't see what's going on, and more often than not, there's always one guy in there that's just not good enough as a wrestler to pull it off.
Yeah.
But
it's overbooked. It's an overbooked match. It's two matches. Double cage, that's a match on its own.
Yep.
Double cage, you've got to escape both. That's a match on its own. Cage with 4 doors that are timed, that's its own match. Both together,
I know.
It's too much. It's too much rules. It's not like they're complicated rules, but you need a clear goal. And it's like so many different things to do. And I look at it and it's so easily breakable as well, because someone will get halfway up to the top of the thing and they're like, oh my god, he's got to climb 2 cages to catch up to him. No, he doesn't. He gets to the top of the inner cage and jumps to the outer cage. I just don't get it. I just don't get it as a concept. Like, I can understand it somebody coming up with it at a meeting, especially if you've sketched that thing out, because it looks cool. But the logistics of it fall apart so fast. I cannot believe we're now three in. We did 3. 3 deep.
How can we not have done 1?
3 Punjabi prisons deep.
And
you never want to get that deep in Punjabi prisons.
No, you don't. So I'm guessing you fell on the same side as me and you just thought it was utterly ridiculous.
I mean, I'll say this much. The reputation wasn't helped by the first 2, and the performers they had were not built for those matches.
No, absolutely not.
In that regard, Battlegrounds' Punjabi prison was the best one they've ever had.
True.
But that's not, clearly not saying much.
No.
But it really was only worth it for the big bump they did.
I mean, that was amazing.
Really was a shocker. I'm like, holy, like that's 1998 again.
Yeah.
That's a 98 bump.
That was a real big fall. Yeah,
really impressed. Like, it seems like they're doing that more and more with their pay-per-views, presumably because they can get away with a bit more than they can on, TV, where the ad networks have been all like, oh, you can't swear and do your old things that you used to do.
Yeah.
But, with their with the ambulance thing at Great Balls of Fire and the blood at Great Balls of Fire and the big bump off the Punjabi prison, it looks like with the pay-per-views they're trying to go for some of those big moments, the big holy shit moments again.
I think that's a really good idea too, because I think you do need a reason to, especially like, because on SmackDown this week we had Nakamura versus John Cena on free TV, which
Yes.
I know a lot of people are like, wait a minute, what am I paying my network subscription for if you're giving away these huge matches? But yeah, I think you're right. If you're going to get these holy shit moments on pay-per-view or whatever they're called nowadays, that kind of justifies why you hang about for the network, because they cannot do that stuff on TV because it's just not going to be able to get away with it.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, it really is I am shocked at the price to content ratio on that thing. Even if I was still going to stay really, really casual about the wrestling, like I keep that subscription going just because that is good value. And I mean, NXT is worth it alone for me.
Yeah,
getting into that.
I think it's too cheap. I mean, what a strange thing to say. Well, in terms of if I look at it from, if I put my nerd business hat on, I'm like, thing is, I would have bought the network and still paid for WrestleMania separately. I'll never get over that they put WrestleMania on there as well. That always has seemed crazy to me. An event that, towards the end was doing, 1 million or so buys or whatever, however buy rates work. To give it away for $10, it's just like...
But, you sell enough people on that value, you make a damn heck of a lot of money.
That's true. That is very true. I mean, what did you think of Battleground as a show? Because I haven't chatted about it on here yet, and the general consensus coming out the back of it was this was the worst pay-per-view of the year. And not just in WWE. Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, obviously I go out of my way to look for opinions, and it's very easy to fall into that negative vibe. You always find more negative vibes than you do positive ones. But that is kind of the general consensus from the really mad wrestling fan. So even though obviously you weren't the biggest fan, I mean, nobody was a fan of that main event. It just wasn't the case. What did you think about the show as a whole, though? I mean, I guess you kind of not necessarily liked it, but didn't think it was as bad.
It wasn't memorable. I remember way more details about Great Balls of Fire that was legitimately surprising, that one.
Yeah.
In terms of how enjoyable it was. Like, I still remember a lot more about Great Balls of Fire. And bear in mind, Great Balls of Fire was when I was in the hospital. I was filled with laudanum and watching it on a phone. And I still remember way more about it than I do about Battlegrounds.
That's brilliant.
Which I'm only now... having vamped for long enough, I'm starting to remember what the matches were. I think the only thing I really dug about it was, I think Usos New Day was very enjoyable.
That was very good, yeah, I like that too. And you had the weird AJ Styles, Kevin Owens finish that apparently was changed mid-match, everybody says, but who knows if that's true. Yeah, that weird thing where he wasn't pinned, but he was pinned, and then the ref seemed confused. I don't know what there was. But I still thought they had a good match. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was bad.
It was forgettable, but it wasn't offensive. I didn't hate watching it. I had a lot more of a mixed opinion about Money in the Bank the month prior, or however. I still think of them in terms of months, where nowadays they just seem so scattershot.
Oh, yeah.
But, their prior one, Money in the Bank left me with a bit more of a sour taste than Battlegrounds did, which was just there.
Was that the end, because of the ending of the women's match, which I know a lot of people didn't happy, or just in general, do you think it was a weird show?
It was a weird, I know people dubbed it the Night of Heels.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I love heels, more than faces. I always find villains more interesting.
Yeah.
But even so, having that many, because I think it was straight after Money in the Money in the Bank women's match, they had Usos New Day where Usos walked out, and at that point I'm like, they're just trolling, they are just they're just having a laugh tonight. So both of those things then just led to the rest of the event just being so weird, and I think that was the night that the Canellises debuted as well.
You're right, it was.
This is just, they are really seeing what they can get away with tonight, aren't they? But as far as Battlegrounds goes, it was the thing that put me off was just it was too much of that USA.
Yeah.
Because not only did we have Kevin Owens slagging America off, and then the US title, as much respectability as it has these days, I can tell it seems like the most valuable belt on any of the shows. But they seem to tie a lot of patriotism to it now. So there was that going on, and Rusev and John Cena for taking it to our famous nemesis, the Bulgarians.
Damn those people.
And damn them all to heck. And, of course, Randy Orton, Jinder Mahal, which has its own foreign heel, USA stuff.
It's too
much. So it was just so much of that. And the whole Battlegrounds thing just looked like propaganda.
Yeah.
In at least 3 matches, there was like elements of Dear Leader just sort of creeping in. And I'm like, because it's funny, because when I first started getting into it, people kept saying SmackDown's the good show, Raw's the bad show, and I've been able to watch over the past couple of weeks just those polarities reverse and people's opinions shifting.
At the moment, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Right now, yeah. As far as SmackDown goes, obviously it's great that Jericho's back. A huge lover of Jericho as both a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah.
But aside from him and a couple of others, like it's the women's division that I'm watching SmackDown for, just because Charlotte and Natalya and Becky Lynch and Carmella and all of the and Tamina and everyone are really great to watch. And I'm also very fascinated by what they're doing with Lana, because it's clear she's not good at wrestling, but that's the storyline.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
She keeps getting in matches and she's not good at wrestling. And I've seen people react to it like, oh, I don't get why she's in the ring. It's like, but that's the point. Like, no one in the ring's getting why she's in the ring.
Yeah.
So they're clearly going somewhere with it.
I hope they do as well, because I think she's
yeah.
great. I think she has that thing we were talking about earlier where she just gets it. And she can get a reaction out of you. So let's worry about the rest of it later, and let's focus on that for the time being. And we'll get to where we need to go eventually. But she's different, and that's what I like.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to make the point on Twitter, but 140 characters, no nuance. There was no way I could do it without it making it sound like I was perving on her.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to point out that she's not great at wrestling, but I love to just watch her in the ring. I like to just look at her, and it's not that she isn't attractive, but what I mean by I like to look at her, like her performance as a heel is great.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we were saying about, like, if you've got the psychological aspect, you can put on an entertaining show, even if you're not a good wrestler.
Exactly.
And her being a bad wrestler is fascinating to watch. And, again, I've seen some of her from some of the old stuff I've been watching, 2014, 2015, back when she was with Rusev.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, she is great. She is a great heel. Yeah, very interested in that.
Absolutely.
And on the Raw side, there's just right now just a lot more that I'm watching for, because we've got Roman J. Stroman, and we've got Elias Sampson doing his thing. Bray Wyatt, I love to watch all the time, and so there's just right now there's a lot more going on Raw for me than there is on SmackDown.
I agree.
But that said, the women's stuff on SmackDown is just absolutely knocking it out the park for me.
Yeah, I think.
That said, I really like Alexa Bliss as well.
Oh, she's great.
It's another one who knows how to be a heel in today's world.
Yeah.
And her, it's not even her on the mic that I like so much as her talking in the ring, because she's so loud, and those cameras, I mean, they're a lot better at picking up sound than they were in the 2000s anyway. But it's like she knows that the cameras can pick up everything she's saying, so she is on 100% screaming at people.
Yeah.
And it's great. And that thing she did with the elbow, that
man,
was a great balls,
that
wasn't
weird...
it? The dislocated elbow was so good.
Oh, I think she's come on leaps and bounds too, and she just knows how to handle a crowd, and that's so rare these days. Like, some people, especially where she is in her career, don't. And I get it; it's a difficult thing to learn, but she's just got that natural understanding of how to do it. Oh yeah, I think she's going to be awesome going down. She's awesome already, but I think down the line, her and Charlotte are the two people I see as really cementing that division as something special.
Yeah, well, Charlotte. Yeah, I mean, you look at Charlotte and I'm like that. She's a consummate wrestler.
Yeah, she's a superstar.
Like,
she just is.
Absolutely. And she's gonna lead it, I think. I don't think that's a particularly insightful thing to say.
Oh, I
think
still
that's
agree,
fairly
though.
obvious. But yeah, she's going to lead it. Natalya, like her and Natalya, I think are just destined to have some great long-running feuds over the years.
I totally agree.
And I would like to see her face Charlotte against Alexa Bliss in full heel mode.
I would. I really hope we get to that down the line, because I think Charlotte is so talented. She can be, like you say, your big face of your division that leads it forward. She's just that good. She can talk. She can work. She's Ric Flair's daughter. Who would have known?
That's
eh?
it.
Who would have known?
I don't want to diminish her talent by tying her to her father.
Yeah.
But she's a Flair through and through.
Exactly. Yeah.
And she works it so well.
Yeah, that family's just wrestling gold. That's all it is. They just know what they're doing. Before we do wrap up, I want to throw a few names at you, because I want to get your opinion on them. Just because I think most of them, I'm just going through my list I've got here, most of them are brand new in terms of when you kind of jumped off the bandwagon, but they're people, their names obviously that a lot of wrestling fans now debate the most, really. They are the trending names. So I wanted to start with Brock Lesnar. I guess he literally started when you were leaving, right? He came early 2000s, yes. I think. So did you know him at all, or did you just kind of know him? Oh, you did. So was that?
I did. I'd seen him. I'm trying to remember. I remember him debuting.
Okay.
I remember initially thinking, oh, they found something for Paul Heyman to do since the invasion. That's nice. But Brock Lesnar never interested me back in the day. Something about him, I don't know what it is, but something about him found no purchase with me.
Interesting.
I only liked Paul Heyman, and him as a wrestler, as a talker, as an anything. I don't know what it is. Like, it just wasn't the kind of character, it wasn't the kind of persona, it wasn't the kind of performer I liked. And to say that has not changed is to put it diplomatically. Now that he turns up every few months, does a couple Germans, and that's it.
Yeah. So
it's clear he doesn't care anymore. As far as I can tell, the man just doesn't give a shit.
I don't. Well,
to the point
no.
where, like, I'm looking at Roman and Joe and Stroman, and I'm like, can that not just be the SummerSlam main event? I'd like it more if Lesnar wasn't there.
Wow, see, that's huge opinions coming up in here, because, well, actually, no, saying that, I think he divides people. I think you got 50% of people think that, and 50% love the fact that obviously he's got his UFC background, so they can actually buy into him and believe that what he's doing is real.
Oh yeah, I no doubt that the guy is believably terrifying.
Yeah,
I believe he could kick the ass of almost anyone. If not literally everyone in the WWE. That I can't take away from him. And I think it's a taste thing. Like, I don't think he's bad at what he does, or at least he wasn't when he cared. But just from a pure taste perspective, his look, his style, his persona, his wrestling, none of it does anything for me.
I love it. See, I find that fascinating. I love to hear people's opinions on Brock Lesnar, because he's such a polarizing figure, and I think maybe that's why he's been so successful, because he gets that kind of reaction out of you. I also wanted to bring up Big Cass and Enzo, which is a strange one, because obviously their big talking point at the moment is they should...
Talking of wrestlers my wife hates.
Oh, which one? Or both of them?
Enzo Amore.
Well, this is what I wanted to, because I've never got Enzo. Like, I could see he's talented. Like, he's a good speaker. Straight away, you can, it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. But to me, I always kind of bought into WWE's idea, which, the rumors and murmurings were, okay, we run this out for as long as we feel we need to, and then we see what we can do with Big Cass. And I was always like, I kind of get that. I kind of understand why you'd want to do that. And obviously, they've pulled the trigger, and everyone seems up in arms about it, like, because they're worried about what's going to happen to Enzo. But as you've just said, obviously your wife is not a big fan of Enzo Amore. What do you think about him?
He talks too much.
Yeah, he does.
and it's not just from a Big Cass talks too much thing. It's not the persona. It's he is on the mic too long.
Yeah,
he's on the microphone too. The Great Balls of Fire speech where he just went on and on about Frank Sinatra. Like, I was yelling, "Shut up!" I wanted him to just stop. Like, if he cut his promos by 50%, I'd probably like him a lot more. I'd probably also love the hell out of him if he was the heel, because that obnoxious catchphrase rattling, heavily accented, going on too long thing to me, is another meta heel move. It's another Elias Sampson, Aiden English type deal. He could be really, really obnoxious, but apparently people love him. So,
oh man, people go crazy for him. I honestly, it's one of those few things in wrestling where I'm like, it's awesome that that he gives you that reaction. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
It's tough because I don't dislike him. I just think it's too much of him, and I don't know how to fix that. So there's that. As far as Big Cass goes, big into him. He's like a 7 foot tall edge. Like he looks very edgish.
You know what? That's a really good comparison. Yeah, he does look like that.
And he's good on the microphone, and he does the big man thing very well. He's not innovative with it, but he does it very well.
I agree.
He'll throw a guy around. He'll, whack you with a big boot. And he's another one like Alexa who is doing a lot of in-ring talking that's being picked up by the camera.
Yeah.
And it's working really well. When he was beating up Enzo the second time he started beating on him, that night he threw him down the ramp, and that was really good. Say whatever could be said about Enzo, he'll take a bump really nice.
Oh man, yeah, he gets ragdolled.
Yeah, and when Enzo was when Cass was doing all that stuff, like him yelling at the crowd, just like, oh yeah, you want Enzo, and then just throwing him, like just the casual trash talk stuff. He's very good. So it's obvious Cass is going to be a big star.
I agree. I totally agree. A lot of people don't see that. I've always thought there was something in Big Cass. Oh, good. I'm glad I found somebody else to agree with me about Big Cass.
Yeah, to me it's obvious at least. Clearly it's not to others you've talked to, but to me it seems obvious Cass is going to be a very notable big guy.
Yeah, what a good day this is. the last guy I wanted to talk about, obviously, because he's in the, he couldn't be more in wrestling headlines at the moment, was of course Shinsuke Nakamura. Because I would guess that I don't want to guess here, but you didn't see him when he was in New Japan or doing any of that stuff.
No, I've only seen the what Twitter, at least my Twitter followers, call the quote-unquote ruined version of Shinsuke Nakamura.
And this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because I'm not here to pretend that I was like this super big New Japan fan and watched it every week. But, just given what I do for a living and stuff, when people, when the buzz happened, I thought, well, I should really watch this guy. And I could understand why people, were so enamored with him. And now, obviously, he's come to the WWE, and the big thing is, well, this isn't Shinsuke Nakamura, and everybody's really upset. You don't have that, opinion, because you didn't see what he did in New Japan, which I actually think is a huge plus at this stage. And obviously he's now going into the SmackDown main event at SummerSlam to take on Jinder Mahal. He beat Cena on SmackDown, which I thought was a really good match. But yeah, what is your take on him? Like, do you get the buzz? Do you get the fuss, or does he just come across as another dude?
Well, speaking of wrestlers that my wife adores, now she loves Shinsuke Nakamura.
This is great. This is great.
She squeezed when he's on. Like every time he talks, when he did the interview 2 shows back when he was asked about John Cena and he was like, John Cena won't see me. Like she was like giggling like a schoolgirl. Like, she loves his whole thing. I'm a big fan. Like I think it was JBL who first said it, but ever since I've not been able to shake the thought of it. That he strikes me as the new Undertaker. Not in terms of gimmick, of course. In terms of presence. Like,
wow,
when
that's
that guitar
interesting.
riff starts and the lights go down, at least I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
Because I'm about to see, like, a legendary entrance. Very much like what The Undertaker had. A legendary, like, fully iconic way of coming to the ring.
That is an awesome take.
That's the way I see him, and I'm thrilled that to talk like very similar to the women's division that we're seeing, just a diverse roster of wrestlers. It's great to me to see in both NXT and WWE Japanese wrestlers being given such respect. Like back in my day, it was Tajiri who was like the Japanese buzzsaw, who was treated as a joke because he was Japanese. So of course he comes out to very Japanesey sounding music. He comes out You know, there's hilarious bowing and grinning and, oh, look, he's dating Tori Wilson, and it's funny because he's small and Japanese. And Kai and Tai, of course.
We all remember Kai and Tai.
Yeah. It warms my heart every time they do a pay-per-view and I still see Funaki.
I know.
I'm like, oh, we still got a job. That's lovely.
Job for life. Good old Funaki.
Yeah. So Shinsuke Nakamura, I really like him. Obviously, he's got a big entrance. I'm a big entrance fan.
Yeah.
But in ring, he's just got such a presence. There's something about him that's arresting. Also, I'm a big Dynasty Warriors fan, and he looks like he could be in that game. From his costume to the music to just the bizarre, eccentric way he
That is so
behaves.
true. That is the greatest take on Shinsuke. That is so true. I can't believe no one said it before. He really could. He's almost like he's fallen out of that franchise.
He really does. There's something a little video game-ish about him in general. And I think the thing that I love more than anything else is when he's coming out, that he seems so overcome by how brilliant he is, he wants to cry. Like, the near tears that he's in just at being Shinsuke Nakamura. And then collapsing because being Shinsuke Nakamura obviously is so exhausting.
Oh, that's great.
I love that whole thing. And the match he had with Cena was, I mean, it's the first time I've watched, I think it might be the only Cena match I've bothered watching from beginning to end without skipping ahead or leaving the room for a bit.
Yeah.
Again, nothing against John Cena, it's just very much like Brock Lesnar, it's a taste thing.
Yeah, I get that.
Seeing him in the ring in general is just, it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But him and Shinsuke was again arresting, and I am really, really surprised and thrilled he won. I don't read I'm deliberately doing this, not going into the dirt sheety stuff like I used to.
I think that's the best way to do it.
Because I really want to I want to watch it and enjoy it as a show.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what the plans are. You pick up some of it invariably, like I've picked up, plans for Roman Reigns, but that was me deliberately researching him out of that dark fascination I mentioned earlier. So I don't know what the long-term plans are, but everything I'm seeing with Shinsuke, I don't know how he was before WWE, but in terms of ruining him, all I'm seeing is a guy getting a really respectable hell of a push and the crowd eating it up. And that doesn't look like ruin to me.
I totally agree. You have the best and freshest take on wrestling ever, Jim. I'll let you know that much. It's so much nicer than usual. Yeah, it's all crap, everything's shit. And I'm like, why are you watching? Don't know. Just can't help it. But
give me a couple more years.
Oh, we all get cynical. It will wear you down. They'll do one thing that upsets you, and that's it. It'll be a downward hill from there.
That's it. And I'll take another break. I'll get back into it when I'm 45, and I'll be all fresh-faced again.
Well, they say wrestling's cyclical, right? So maybe we should watch it in the same way too. Come and go as and when it pleases you. Well, this has been awesome, dude. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts about wrestling. I think it's been very insightful and fascinating. So,
thank you. It's been a pleasure. Funnily enough, as a funny fact, this is the third conversation we've ever had, but the first conversation we've ever actually had.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
We've had two on-screen conversations in the past, but they were all locally recorded and edited together by the Video Gamer UK people.
That's true.
So, yeah, this is the first time we've ever actually directly interacted.
It's true, and it's been about pro wrestling, and that makes me oddly happy as well, because I'm a massive wrestling nerd, even though I pretend I'm not. Well, I honestly do. Thank you so much for your time. And obviously, people can get you. Are you on Twitter are you at Jim Sterling on Twitter? Is that your
At
thing?
Jim Sterling, yeah, all one word.
All one word, and obviously
same for YouTube, Jim Sterling.
And honestly, I'm not just saying this because Jim is on. There's a reason Jim and I, managed to find each other through the magic of the internet, and that is because his videos and pretty much all of his output is awesome. So you should definitely go and check all that out.
Well, I think we're both games media guys who were influenced by wrestling to create alter egos for ourselves, I think, based on real aspects of us.
It's true.
I think we kind of took the wrestler gimmick approach to our sort of video coverage of stuff. You with the Miller Report, me with the Jimquisition. So I think I think it's kind of, it makes sense that we'd have gotten along.
You know what? You're 100% correct, and that makes me happy too. Look at that, wrestling bringing people together, which was
it's a nice time.
Which is always meant to be the point. And obviously, if you want to hear more of Jim's voice just through the airwaves, he has a podcast as well, which is also called The Jimquisition. Which
yes, you look up the Jimquisition feed on iTunes. It's actually several podcasts running on basically just a channel, I guess, or a feed. But yeah, you can get the Podquisition, the Spin-Off Doctors, Jim Won't Givey and his VR, and that's all on the Jimquisition. You can see that on SoundCloud for as long as SoundCloud still exists.
I got worried about that the other day. I went and downloaded my podcast. I was like, is this about to just collapse in on itself? I better go get 'em.
It's a weird time. It's a hassle for me having to look for somewhere else, but what can you do?
I'm holding out hope
easy
for
to
now.
find.
He is. Just look for Jim Sterling. He's everywhere, as he should be. Well, Jim, hopefully we can get you back on. Maybe we can get you back on sort of either leading into WrestleMania or post SummerSlam or something and see if WWE's managed to upset you yet. That would be interesting.
Anytime, yeah. I don't really have an outlet as of yet to really talk about wrestling, so this was a joy for me.
Well,
outside of Twitter and stuff. So this was enjoyable.
Well, you're always welcome back. That's 100% true. If you are listening on iTunes, please do give us 5 stars, leave a comment, do all that stuff. That's how the iTunes algorithm works, and we fly up the rankings, and more people can find us, and we can take it from there. And all of this, all of my nonsense, when you hear my voice or see my voice, is supported by Patreon. You go to patreon.com/SimonMiller316, and anything you put in there, it all comes. I mean, it goes into my bank account first, but then it all goes back into this kind of stuff. So any support would be great. Jim, thanks again for your time. This has been awesome. I think it's been my favourite wrestling podcast I've done, to be honest. So
thank you very much. I mean, knowing who you've spoken to in the past and stuff, I take that as very high praise.
Well, I love having just a down-to-earth, normal chat about wrestling, and that's exactly what this was. And it's been great. So I know we were away for 2 weeks, but I wanted to come back with a bang. I think we've done that. So this is either going to drop on Friday the 4th or Saturday the 5th, depending on how quick iTunes is. But we will be back next Wednesday. We're going to get back into a routine now. Life's done its thing. It's out the way. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. And thanks for listening.